Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2. I fucking love this movie to death. I really do. The reason why it took me so long to get to these Evil Dead films, I mentioned this in the my review for the original Evil Dead, was because I wanted a t-shirt. Because I'm a fanboy of this series. I love the trilogy. Army of Darkness isn't one of my favorite films. I enjoy it. I loved Ash vs. Evil Dead. I'm a fanboy of... I actually meant to have this up for my other reviews, but I wasn't paying attention. Ash from Ash vs. Evil Dead, which my girlfriend also bought me one year for Christmas. The only other ones they have is of Army of Darkness. They don't have a Evil Dead 2 Ash, which I would love to have. And she recently just got me this Evil Dead 2 t-shirt. Because Evil Dead 2 is my favorite film of the franchise. It is my fourth favorite film of all time. Of all time. Only beaten by Shining, Chainsaw Massacre, and Psycho. Then this, and even the original Evil Dead is my fifth favorite film. So, the first two films of Evil Dead are both in my top 5. And this movie is just fantastic. I can't praise it enough. If I sounded like I was, sucking the first movie's dick in my review of that, get ready for this one. Now, first one came out in 81. This came out in 87. Now, Sam Raimi had made a film in between the first two Evil Deads. Can't remember what it was called, but it was a disaster. Didn't really make any money. Didn't do well with any kind of reviews. So he made this more or less out of desperation. And I'm glad he did. And there's been many versions of this that have been released. I purposely wanted this one because I love this poster. I used to see this in the video store when I was a kid. And I thought that was scary looking. I was like, this has got to be a messed up movie. Never in a million years would I have guessed this is a comedy. It is. It's a horror comedy. It's the perfect blend of the horror from the original Evil Dead and the comedy of Army of Darkness. It is a sequel, but the first maybe 5 to 10 minutes is a remake or a retcon of the first film. Opens up with this great stop motion animation with, background of the sea and whatever, but it's red and blue. It has the stop motion Necronomicon, which does look drastically different from the first film. It's more so gray, it has teeth, talks about what it is, bound in human flesh, inked in blood. You can, bring out demonic beings from it, and it possesses people. And then it opens up with Ash bringing his girlfriend Linda, played by a different actress this time. This time she is played... God, I hate it. I hate it when it's like this and you have to scroll through all the character bios. Denise Bixler. She was originally played by Betsy Baker. But in this film, it's just those two going out to the cabin. Just those two. Not a group of friends. It's not, a friend vacation. It's a romantic getaway. And, the words are read from the book. Or maybe it's the tape. I still always forget for some reason. Just that tiny detail I always forget. But Linda gets possessed. He still gives her the necklace. I forgot to mention the necklace in the first one. It's, magnifying glass on a necklace. He gives that to her. And then it's all pretty, instead of the friends being possessed and everything, it's pretty much just Ash dealing with his girlfriend. He has to kill her, he cuts her head off, and then there's this great stop motion animation of her coming out of the ground and dancing. She does this like spin thing, but her head stays the same. Kind of Tim Burton-y and dark, but still kind of silly. Or even like, and then the scene where he's gonna really hack her up. He goes for the chainsaw, he has her head in a vice, and then like her headless body's coming in with the chainsaw. The effects in this, the original, they were done by Tom Sullivan. In this, they're done by K&B. This is an early K&B project. Probably K&B's first actual project after a Day of the Dead, because they worked with Tom Savini on Day of the Dead, and now they're doing Evil Dead 2. And it is sort of cut between, there's this woman and I don't know if it's a romantic partner or a work colleague. They have these other pages from the book, and they're heading out to the cabin because she believes her parents are still there, so they can, continue working on the deciphers. And just the shit that Ash goes through. I mean, one of the funny things is how, the demon vision is chasing Ash through the cabin, and Ash is slamming the doors behind him as he goes through a room, but it's like a fucking maze. Like, there's no way the cabin's that big. I'm sure that was a joke. If it wasn't, it's still funny. And even there, like, there's a lot of scenes that are obvious mistakes that I think Sam Raimi left in there because he thought it was funny. Like when Ash is being chased through the cabin, it's really quick, but if you look up at the roof, there's no roof at all. And there's like a sound stage. There's like lights and rafters. And that's just one of the many like technical, goofs in this film. I mean, you can see seams and costumes, and like creature costumes. You can see strings of things that are on strings. Sam Raimi thought it was funny, I think, so he left him in there. There's the whole thing where, his hand gets possessed, and I didn't mention this for my review of the original, where Linda gets it on her ankle, and now Ash gets it on his hand. It's like this animation of veins. Like his hand gets possessed and just starts beating the shit out of him. Like, smashing dishes on his head. Bruce Campbell got tortured in this because Sam Raimi, as I mentioned before, Sam Raimi loves to torture his cast. And, when Ash cuts off his hand, it's probably my favorite shot out of the whole series. It's this weird, like, Dutch shot coming up close, and he's like, who's laughing now, as he takes the chainsaw. You don't see it, but the blood spraying on his face, and he's, like, screaming. Then you get, the comedic scene where his hand is running around, like the Addams Family, and he's trying to shoot it. There's all these, like, cartoon-style mouse holes in the wall that he keeps trying to shoot the hand in. At one point, it gets into a mousetrap, and Ash is just like, ha ha! I just thought that was awesome. Gives him the finger. And just to show how outrageous this movie is, he shoots at the wall, and there's, a bullet hole and a little trickle of blood, showing that he got the hand. But then there's just this geyser of blood coming out of the wall. Then it turns to black. And then I think it's shot in reverse, so it looks like it all gets sucked back in. You get one of my favorite scenes where the cabin is just laughing at him. This great scene where, Ash is on the floor. It's just like... Then it goes right to this deer head. The deer head just starts like laughing at him. The clock's laughing. The books are laughing at him. There's like a lamp laughing at him going like this. And then Ash just does like that, ha ha ha. And then, the man and the woman going towards the cabin, they can't get there because the bridge is all fucked up. So there's this hillbilly guy and his girlfriend, Bob and Joe, that take them there through an alternate route. Which that was another thing I forgot to mention. Where the first film ends with that demon vision going through the cabin right up to Ash's face. That happens in the beginning of this one. Comes right up to him, and there's this really cool shot of him like this. And it's like he's being flown back. It's really fast, and it's like, and like he spins all the way around. He lands in a puddle, and he becomes evil Ash. But when the sun hits him, it goes away. You get this cool effect. I think it was done with, like a piece of a face that they had like a glass eye in that they filled with milk. Then they just like shot it in reverse. But yeah, then once the people get to the cabin, they think Ash is a killer. They throw him down in the cellar. That's where Henrietta is. Henrietta is the woman's mother, played by Ted Raimi, which he's a deadite. The seams of the costume is in the crotch. So when Ted Raimi's flying around on strings, that you can see the seams in the crotch. Just crazy scenes. I mean, then she turns... Where is it? Then she God damn it. Turns into that thing. Cellar door lands on her head. Ash jumps on it. Eyeball pops out. Goes into Bobby Joe's mouth, which was shot in reverse. You can see the string. And I know I'm going all over the place just talking about the effects, but this really is, like, for really over-the-top, gory horror films with a lot of effects, I mean, this is like John Carpenter's The Thing of, like, splatstick horror comedies. There's a ton of effects. The one hillbilly guy is played by Dan Hicks, who was the boss in Intruder, which is a great 80s slasher film. It takes place in a grocery store. He gets sucked into the like the cellar door, like the knees up is in there. It's just geyser of blood. And Ash turns into evil Ash a couple times, but the necklace always brings him back. He says groovy for the first time in this, when he makes the whole thing that will hold the chainsaw onto his stump. Groovy. This is just a mad, fun movie. It does have a tree rape. It's not tree rape, but Bobby Joe is attacked by trees. Like, you see branches, like, going down her throat, that she's dragged. You see, like, vines going, like, under her skin. And that's when we get that scene where the hillbilly is like, Bobby Joe! First time I saw that, I thought it went on forever. And I know I'm only talking about, like, key effect parts, and because it really is, it's Ash by himself dealing with this shit. Then the other people get to the cabin, and then they have to deal with it. Much like the first one. The tagline was originally Dead by Dawn, which I don't think it says on this. No, it doesn't. Another funny part is the hillbilly. He gets stabbed with a dagger by accident because the woman is trying to keep bad Ash outside. So she stabs him, but he keeps getting hit. Like, she tries to pull him inside and slams the door, but slams it on his feet. It keeps, like, falling on him or, like, bumping him into shit. This is my favorite performance of Ash, Bruce Campbell just goes for it. I mean, there are some over the top moments, like when he wakes up from. I think, yeah, is when he watches Linda dancing around headless. He wakes up screaming, and there's this part where he's like, ah, ah, ah. Very over the top movie, but it's so much fun. And yeah, I think the reason why he sort of redid the first film in the first 10 minutes, then did a sequel, is because he had a bigger budget. I mean, the cabin looks much better, even though I do like the dilapidated state of the original cabin. And then, of course, it ends with, reading the passages to send everything back, and there's like that wormhole that sends Ash back through it, back to 1300 AD, which would then become Army of Darkness. I cannot praise this movie enough. I know I haven't even been talking about it as long as, even as Army of Darkness. But, the effects are over the top and gory, and yeah, they look fake. Like this guy right here, that's the one that's with the woman whose parents are at the cabin. His deadite self is pretty over the top looking. There's that part where I think he bites Bobby Joe, but he just gets a mouthful of hair. He's like, arr, 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 arr. Just like just swallows down the hair. And you can definitely see Sam Raimi's love of like Three Stooges shining out in this. Not as much as Army of Darkness. And it is one of those movies like, okay, you did the horror thing with the original, but some of the stuff in this is just so over the top. Just have fun with it and make it a comedy, and that's exactly what they did. There was actually a rise of really over the top, gory horror comedies in the mid to late 80s. This, Reanimator, Return of the Living Dead, and that's my order of the favorites: Evil Dead 2, Reanimator, Return of the Living Dead. Reanimator is in my top 10 favorite films. Probably 6th or 7th. Just to me, this is the quintessential Evil Dead film. It's the best of everything. Like I said earlier, the perfect blend of horror from the first film, comedy from Army of Darkness. And I actually know a lot of people who say 2 is their favorite one. And I know Rotten Tomatoes isn't be all end all, but I mean, one has 95%, this has 98%, so like, holy shit. This is an even bigger cult classic and cult favorite than the original, and I can see why. I'm sure there was a lot more that I wanted to say before I made this video, but I even think I made this point in my Evil Dead 1 videos. Just when I love a movie so much, there's so much I want to say that I can't remember it all. I did mention a while ago, I think in my top, one of my top countdowns that this comes up on, top 25 horror films, that like if I'm ever bored or feeling kind of down or just not okay, or if I just don't know what to watch, this helps everything. If I'm bored, I can put it in and enjoy it. If I'm not having the best day, I can put this in and I can have a blast. This and Dead Alive, which is sort of like the 80s over-the-top gory horror comedies, but it came out in 92. That is in my top 10 also. I reviewed Dead Alive, Return of the Living Dead, and Reanimator. Dead Alive and Reanimator are also in my top 10. Very close in, 5. And this is just some of the most fun I ever have watching a movie. It really is. Like, I put it in, and it's just, it's not funny in like a Monty Python kind of way, but just like a really creative, crazy. Oh, I keep saying over the top because that's what it is. Just high energy fun. Like there's a part where Ash and that one girl, the one woman, they hear noises, so it's like they hear slams, and they always look in different directions. It's like boom, 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 boom. And it's like these like crazy angles, and it's kind of shaky. It goes up to like the rafters, and then like showing all this crazy shit happen. I love those Sam Raimi angles. Very original, like direction and cinematography. Again, killer effects by K&B. And if you watch The Gore the Merrier, the special feature on this, it's K&B talking about the stuff they did and just how they thought it was going to be ridiculous and silly and unable to pull it off. But then, like the headless Linda with the chainsaw, they thought it was going to be really stupid. Then they did it and it looked great, and it still does. I love the imagery. It's like Tim Burton but darker. And, really, especially, this time of year, like the scenes with Linda dancing in stop motion, just great, like, Halloween atmosphere. I fucking love this movie. Evil Dead 2, fourth favorite movie of all time. My favorite Evil Dead film. My favorite horror comedy. I mean, horror is like Evil Dead 2, Reanimator, Return of... probably Evil Dead 2, Dead Alive, Reanimator, Shaun of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead. Yeah, those are definitely my top 5 horror comedies. Oh, Bad Taste, which I just saw for the first time recently. I reviewed that, and I had a fucking blast with it. That was also 80s. We had Evil Dead 2, best Evil Dead film. Some of the most fun you can ever have watching a movie, especially horror. I mean, it is just so much just fun. It really is fun. Over the top in a fun way. And like how I said, the original film, it has those little technical flaws that give it charm. This is done where those technical flaws are left in because it's funny. Like the strings and telling you're on a soundstage and whatnot. Scenes and costumes. Great movie. And my favorite performance by Bruce Campbell in general, but definitely of Ash. This is my favorite Ash. The atmosphere, the environment, the effects. The rest of the cast is over the top. Like the girl whose parents are in the cabin. When she screams, she doesn't look like she's in terror, but she's just screaming anyway, and it's very B-movie. I love it. I'm just going to keep repeating myself but by praising this. Evil Dead 2. Fucking love this movie. Love Evil Dead 2. One of my favorites of all time. Fourth favorite movie ever. Fucking bravo to this movie. Masterpiece. Love it. Thank you guys for watching.